the 21st of December 2012. The end of the world, the end of days. The great cataclysm predicted by a mysterious people from the depths of the jungle. They read the will of the stars, they understood the cycles of the universe, and they left us a warning. This is what the world believed. This is the story we told ourselves. A story about a powerful, unified Mayan empire. About a people who reached incredible heights of wisdom and then, just as mysteriously, vanished as if they had never been, leaving us with only ruins and unsolved mysteries. And now, let's forget all of that, because almost everything in that story is a lie. It is a great historical illusion, and the people who supposedly predicted the end of the world never existed in the way we imagine them. Welcome. In these archives, we search for the truth hidden beneath layers of myths. And the main myth that blocks us from entering the world of the Maya like a locked door is the word empire itself. When you hear Roman Empire, what do you picture? One city, Rome. One leader, the emperor. Unified laws, a unified army stretching from Britain to Persia, right? When you hear Aztec Empire, you picture their capital, Tenochtitlan, the wonder city on the lake. You picture one ruler, Montezuma. But when you look for the capital of the Maya Empire, you don't find it. You look for the one great Maya emperor. But his name isn't in history. Why? Because he never existed, just as the empire itself never existed. To understand who the Maya were not, let's look at whom they're constantly confused with. The Aztecs, who lived in central Mexico, were conquerors, classic imperialists. They came, they saw, they conquered. They built their empire by force of arms, forcing dozens of other peoples to pay them tribute in gold, feathers, maize, and people. The Maya world, which existed for thousands of years longer, was the complete opposite. It was older than Rome. It was a contemporary of ancient Greece, and that right there is the key. The Maya were not the Romans. The Maya were the Greeks of the New World. This was not one country. It was a turbulent, restless, ever-warring cauldron of dozens, and in some periods hundreds, of independent kingdoms.
Act 2. The World of City-States.
Think of ancient Greece. Athens was a democracy, a center of philosophy and art. Sparta was a harsh military dictatorship. They spoke the same language, worshipped Zeus, Apollo, and Athena. They all gathered together for the Olympic Games. But they were mortal, irreconcilable enemies. An Athenian would rather die than call himself a Spartan. They were all Hellenes, but politically, they were Athenians, Spartans, Corinthians. In the Maya world, it was exactly the same. An inhabitant of the great city of Tikal would never call himself a citizen of Calakmul. He was a citizen of his city, his polis. In the Mayan language, his Ajawil, his kingdom. Every city had its own divine king, its Aja, who considered himself the center of the universe. He had his own dynasty, his own army, and his own patron gods. This is Tikal. If the Maya world had a New York, this was it. At the peak of its power in the 8th century AD, this metropolis was home to 100,000 people. Its stone towers rose higher than the treetops. It wasn't always this way. For centuries, it was just one among many. But in 732 AD, its great ruler, Kawil I, was buried here, in the Temple of the Great Jaguar. This pyramid wasn't just a tomb, it was a monument, a challenge, a declaration of victory over an eternal mortal enemy, over those who had humiliated and controlled Tikal for decades, over the Snake Empire. And this is that very enemy, Calakmul. Today, it is less famous, buried deep in the jungle, but for centuries, it was the Sparta to Tikal's Athens. This was the capital of the powerful Snake Kingdom. We know this because its rulers put their emblem, a snake's head, everywhere. Unlike Tikal, Calakmul did not always fight directly. It was a master of proxy wars. It used vassal kingdoms to strangle Tikal, cutting it off from trade routes. In 562 AD, Calakmul's allies defeated Tikal, captured its king, and sacrificed him. This marked the beginning of Tikal's Dark Age, which lasted 130 years. The entire history of the classic Maya period is the story of this great world war between Tikal and Calakmul, between the jaguar and the serpent. And when we understand this, the disappearance of the Maya ceases to be a mystery. But more on that later.
Act 3. The Glue of Civilization.
So, if these weren't subjects of a single empire, but hundreds of warring kingdoms, why do we call them by one name, Maya, at all? What united them if not a flag? Across the entire American continent, from Alaska to Patagonia, only the Maya developed a complete, complex writing system. These weren't just picture puzzles. It wasn't an alphabet like ours. It was an incredibly elegant and complex logosyllabic system, where some signs represented entire words and others individual syllables. They could record everything, from complex poetry to dynastic histories. The irony of history is that the man who almost destroyed this knowledge, the 16th century monk Diego de Landa, also unwittingly gave us the key. While burning the devilish codices, he simultaneously attempted to record the Maya alphabet. But he didn't understand that the Maya, in dictating to him, were naming the sounds of syllables, not individual letters. This key lay untouched for 400 years, until, in post-war Leningrad, a young Soviet scholar, Yuri Knorozov, with only one book of codex reproductions in his hands, made a breakthrough. He understood Delanda's mistake. He understood that they were syllables. Thanks to him, the stones spoke. And they told us not only about gods and prophecies, they told us about real people, about kings, their wives, their birth dates, the wars they waged, and the enemies they captured. It was a lost chronicle of an entire civilization. The second thing that united them was the cosmos. All these cities, from Copan to Chichen Itza, lived, breathed, and waged war according to a single celestial rhythm. They were obsessed with time, and they measured it with ingenious precision. They didn't have one calendar, but at least three working simultaneously. The first was the Hab, their solar calendar, 365 days, 18 months of 20 days, plus 5 unlucky days at the end. It was used for agriculture, almost like ours. The second was the Tzolkin, a sacred 260-day ritual cycle, a combination of 13 numbers and 20 signs. It was a horoscope, a schedule of rituals, and each person's destiny determined by their birth date. But that wasn't enough for them. To record great historical events, they needed a grand chronometer. They created the Long Count, a magnificent day counter that began in the mythical year 3114 BC. And here we are, back to 2012. Remember the panic? All because the long count was based on great cycles, Baktuns, and on December 21st, 2012, one of them was simply coming to an end, the 13th Baktun. For the Maya, it wasn't the end of the world. It was simply the end of a cycle, the same as December 31st for us, when the year counter resets. It's a cause for great celebration and the beginning of a new era. They would have been very surprised to learn that we decided to stage an apocalypse over it.